Good afternoon, Naropa family. Good afternoon, Naropa family. I have to say already I'm a little bit thrown, first of all, by that really, truly gracious and lovely and tender introduction by your esteemed president and my friend in this very life, Chuck Leaf. So that's the first thing that's throwing me off. I just really appreciated the way, the care that you took in graciously introducing me, my dear friend. I'm also thrown off because usually, if anybody's ever seen me speak, you know I'm kind of almost never behind the podium. I'm almost always taking the mic and moving. So here we are. I'm probably going to be doing this a lot more than doing that. So I just want to say, again, thank you to everybody here. I'll pull this just in case I, might look down. But thank you so much, really, to each and every one of you for really inviting me to be in your family, to be in your family. And in this gesture, helping me feel the really sense of expanded family that we are in this moment, right? I want to thank everybody who helped make this day possible. The thanks have already been flowing, and I just want to add mine to those that we extend to all of the staff and faculty, beloved teachers, administrators, family members, right? Chosen family and biological family and every kind of family, without whom we wouldn't be here being able to stand and celebrate some accomplishments today. Yeah? Yes. Yes. So lift up the thanks, lift up the gratitude to everybody in the circle that we know of our connectedness, the circle of support, and also those that we don't know. Right? So pause with me, if you will, to just kind of ponder all the different ways that our life, our being here, is sort of made possible, has been made possible by such an extended web. Those who help us in our everyday, who helped us get here. Think of the many thousands and thousands of people whose names you don't know enabled us just to safely arrive here by their safely following the rules of the road if we drove, or the air travel if we did it that way. So just in pondering those connections that got us here, literally, expanding that to think about, again, the generations. The ancestors we know, the ancestors we don't know. Chuck so beautifully mentioned that I am a child of formerly enslaved people, and that is definitely true. It's also the case that to be a child of enslaved people is to also not really know, or an ancestor, or let's say my lineage includes enslaved people. It's also to be unaware of really the deep web of connections, because part of that experience involved not being allowed to know your full ancestry, your full history, right? And so as we pause and think about all of those on whose shoulders we stand, why don't we invite a little bit of reflection again on the ancestors known and unknown, and recognizing that the stories we know are only just a small, tiny part. Human history, as the scientists tell us, goes back at least roughly 250,000 years. This is Homo sapiens sapiens history, right? Before that, pre-human history, a couple million years. Again, the scientists tell us that. It's hard for us to take that in. But if you begin to take it in, you begin to realize what we really mean by it's really one human family whose lives are inevitably interconnected. So for me, that story I hold about being a child of a heritage grounded in the history of enslavement in America, that's part of the story, but only part, right? I've recently learned one of my ancestors was a former Confederate general. or Confederate officer in the Confederate Army that fought to maintain slavery, a white racialized American who played a very different role than I'm often given to think of myself, think of as part of my family. This too is part of who I am. Let's think about that. So when we actually pause and really think about who we are, we really can't but be humble, but be aware that we know some things and there are many, many things we don't know. And our lives are much more intertwined and interconnected than we really can understand. So, to the graduates of this beautiful university on this day, a special greeting to each and all of you. A special greeting from my heart, from every part of my being. Having sat where you're sitting, actually, I was just thinking about it, and for some reason, I'm not a person that does anniversaries very well, but it was actually 30 years ago that I graduated from the University of Virginia with a BA. So 30 years this May 21st, I think it is. Literally. And then went on to get a graduate degree in sociology, and then went on to get a law degree, and so on and so forth. So many times, having sat in this moment, aware then that this moment can be filled with so many things, a bit of trepidation, a lot of excitement, right? Some pride. You have accomplished this. You have done this. This cannot be taken away from you, ever, right? This will help open doors for you, no matter what else you do from here. This is something that whether it opens the particular doors you want opened or not, it's something to sit with pride about, right? Even as we know we have to be humble too. It's that beautiful, delicate balance of pride and humility that's always the human path, right? So yeah, be proud that you've accomplished what you have accomplished. We are proud of you. We are grateful to sit with you and to be a part of your story, just a little bit a part of your story. We are grateful. We are glad you are here. And we know the world is going to be a better place because you came this way. So we're happy for you. We're proud with you. We're having that sympathetic joy, right? Joy in your joy, joy in what you've accomplished. So take a moment and have that moment of sympathetic joy and joy in the accomplishment of this day. Pause. Feel it. Feel the ground beneath you. Feel this moment. Please don't forget that this is a day of pausing and celebrating, pausing and remembering all that you've been through to get here, things I cannot know, but you do, all that you've overcome, every moment of doubt, all the risks you took, right? And all the ways, again, that you leaned on each other and others in a circle far broader than this to make this day possible. So breathing in and breathing out, being here, taking this in, honoring you in this moment, you and you and you, each one of you, honoring the journey that got you here. You are, in this moment, a manifestation of what in the Yoruba, West African traditional language might be called, or might be recognized by the word ashe. Some of you may know this word, right? Ashe. It's a philosophical and spiritual word that seeks to encompass the idea of the spirit that's at the root of all existence, the spirit that's at the root of all existence, and therefore in you, right now, and is also that word that represents the power in every manifestation of life that makes change possible in you right now. Ashe. It's a greeting, it's an honor, it's a respect. The power in you, the energy in you that got you here, and that is the only thing that makes change possible. So can we, if you will, with me, honoring the ashe in you. Ashe, 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 the power in you. That is new in nature, beautiful beyond measure, complex and yet simple at the same time, like a blade of grass or a ray of sunlight. That's you. That's you. So as we pause in these ways and appreciate all that you are, right? Again, I recognize myself as just this humble, cisgendered woman put in arriving on the planet in this body, right? That has then been labeled engendered female, right? Racialized black, and so on and so forth. And also, more than that, in ways we can't name. And this is so true for all of us, right? So as we walk in the world in ways that, again, we've largely inherited, we've inherited so much, pause to kind of take that in. Because as we stand in the day of celebration and in recognition of all that you've accomplished in this moment, in the packages that prepare you for the walk that is your life. And what do I mean by that? I mean because every packaging, the way in which we land in the planet and we're gendered and we get a name and we have a background and a whole story and we honor and respect those stories, right? Of course. And we recognize that if I have a story to honor and respect, so do you, so do you, so do you, right? And I know that as graduates of Naropa, you understand deeply the way in which your story in connection with others profoundly invites a compassionate engagement with all that is from this moment forward. So in the remaining few moments, I just want to kind of say a few additional things. I know I don't want to be that person going on too much blah, blah, blah between you and the cookies. But in a way, that's what we do up here. But what can I tell you? If we can pause and just think about what it means to have accomplished some things that are only just the beginning. As we say goodbye to this beautiful moment, if you will, of your life, it is a moment if you think about it. It's been a number of years, and in the grand scheme of things, just a moment. And of course, our whole lives are just a moment in the grand scheme of things. Nevertheless, we honor, we respect, we make the most of these moments because we know not the moment when it will come to an end, and yet we know that it will for all of us. So pausing, taking it in, and asking ourselves as we say goodbye in a way that says hello at the same time, recognizes this ending, which is at the same time a beginning. How do you want to begin this next moment? How do you want to begin it? With what particular intentions? With what particular values? With what particular way of walking in the world? Pause and take a moment to really invite your own way of inhabiting the question that I'm presenting right now. What's that beginning going to look like for you? And what's that walk going to look like, more than the moment, for you from here? There is a Zen teaching from Suzuki Roshi, I believe, maybe as well from many other teachers. Often our teachers are speaking from a lineage that is beyond time and teachings that are beyond time. But you've probably heard it before. It's about the most important thing, yeah? The most important thing is really just what? To remember the most important thing. The most important thing is to remember the most important thing, which means, in a way, well, it can mean a lot of things, like a lot of Zen teachings. But what I think it means, at least, is that we recognize the importance of knowing what matters. Recognize the importance of knowing what is the most important thing for me, for you, for each of us. And as we center on our values, you might say, thinking about how we want to be seen, remembered, how we want to impact others in the world, by whom, right? Who are the audiences, if you will, that will matter most in a certain sense as we move? And how, again, do we want to move in ways that impact those audiences? This question of remembering the most important thing is something that, again, from a perspective of mindful awareness, loving awareness, is something we inhabit every moment of our lives. living in a way that represents what we think of as the most important thing as best we can. Again, with humility, with respect for the fact we're just human beings and therefore not perfect, but also completely perfect at the same time. So how do we live in alignment with what we see as our values? It's going to take some courage, y'all. Can I say that again? With my North Carolinian accent coming on through. It's going to take some courage, y'all, to live in alignment with your values, to live what you've been taught and what you've been supported in being at this beautiful university. It's going to take some courage because the world out there has all kinds of different ideas for who you should be, what you should look like, who you should care about, who you really should never, ever care about. And we're going to stand in who we are, notwithstanding all of that. We're going to remember the most important things as we go. So as I have sought to do this in my own life, right? There's so many different stories that come up. And I just want to say again, I really do feel like a part of your family, even though many of you have just met me. I know a few of your professors and have. I want to say Susan. I'm remembering a moment where I met Susan Burghardt some years ago, in which she heard a story of mine, a story about me growing up in North Carolina and having been drawn to contemplative practices as maybe a 3 or 4-year-old because I saw my grandmother getting up every day before dawn and centering herself in her own contemplative practices. For her, it was Christian prayer. And before she began her day, a light would come out from underneath the door that I would see as a little girl. I would often be sleeping outside her door on the floor because my own parents' marriage was breaking up, and we would sleep on what was called a pallet, which was basically some quilts on the floor. We always enjoyed that as a 3-year-old. We didn't realize that meant we didn't have enough beds in the house. But it did enable me to see my grandmother's light come on in every sense of the word, every day. My grandmother then was my first contemplative teacher, Nanny Suggs, who from that place of humility and also grace would leave that room, get us up and ready for the day, and then go and do the work that she was given to do in the world. Not glamorous work, not like the work that maybe even you are thinking of doing, no matter how humble. Because I don't know how many of you are actually thinking you're preparing to clean houses for other people. But that is the work that my grandmother was still doing when I was a young 3, 4, 5-year-old in North Carolina, because women like me were basically told, still at that time, that that is the kind of work we want you to do. Yes, I'm going to name it, 1970-something when I was born, or when I was going through this. Born in 1967, I was. So early 1970s, yes, women like me were still relegated to those kinds of roles. And Susan, on hearing the story, once told me, you know, the stories, those kinds of stories that you tell could change the world. These stories about simple human beings who have a Christian, or let's say Christian or other contemplative light already in their hearts, who have a light of love in their hearts, going out and trying to make a difference. You each have that light in your hearts, and you have stories to tell. And so I'm here to help you hear your own voices. I'm here to say your voice matters so much more than we can say. Your stories matter so much more than I can say. Tell them. Gift us with your stories. There's medicine, if you will, in each of our stories, original medicine. The world that you know is in so much pain, needs the medicine in your stories. Tell them. Let us weave together our stories. Break down the crazy notions of separation that run through all our lives by telling our stories and finding our way toward our common humanity through the gift of those stories. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So I want to just begin to close here, right, by inviting a reflection on this idea that I'm sort of bringing forth and blending with some of my own way of holding the opportunities that present themselves for us. As you know, I've been a law professor, working with students who have done everything from supporting families around the immigration crisis that we're dealing with today, and working in clinics and going down to the southern border and helping families in distress as they prepare for the threat of deportation, of separation. Students who do death penalty work, who go to the South, who sit with people who are condemned, and then have, in some cases, the very unfortunate job of being with families afterwards. So, in other words, the work that law students do, like some of the work that you will do as counselors, as teachers, as folks working in healthcare, this is not for the faint of anything, faint of heart. This is not for softness, because the work that you do, that we do in the world, is difficult, often, very difficult. And yet, I have spent 21 years as a law professor working with students to do these kinds of things. And like my colleagues, your professors here, we know you can do it. We know you can do it. We know that to help you do it, it might help, again, for you to be very clear on why you're doing it and what you may offer at your highest and best. And so very recently, I traveled to South Africa. I get to do a lot of travel now, doing this work of bringing mindfulness and social justice together. And in South Africa, we were at a conference on mindfulness and social justice where an indigenous teacher was brought in because there, like everywhere else, we were trying to reckon with equity and inequity. We were recognizing that here was a Western-infused mindfulness conference that was conceived in the mind of beautiful white male mindfulness teachers trained by John Kabat-Zinn and others in America and Europe, white South African man with the MBSR credentials, starting a mindfulness program in South Africa. And as soon as he put the word out a couple of years ago, everyone started to ask, who are you inviting to this conference? Because the teachers seem to be mostly white. The teachers seem to be mostly European. Maybe there was an occasional African American from America. But people started to ask some serious, good, hard questions, the kind that Naropa graduates will probably also be asking when you see something like this. For whose benefit is this conference? Where are the indigenous voices? How can we honor more fully the contemplative traditions that are already on the ground in Africa? And so, because that conversation did happen, we got the beautiful teachings of an African teacher who shared with us. His name was Baba Kandemwa, is the name that I'll offer here. His name is Baba Mandazwa Kandemwa, the full name. He shared with us that basically what he saw as the way in which contemplative practices support social justice goes way, way back beyond time, beyond the idea of identity and beyond the idea of political parties, but is very much a call to recognize our connectedness with the earth, to remember that we are all part of one human family. And our job really at the end of the day, because we've all forgotten so much of that, is first to heal the sense of separation that runs through our own lives. Heal the sense of separation from each other, from the breath of life, from the earth. Just constantly be thinking about, how do I heal as a human being? And how do I help heal others? Number one, just healing. Number two, peacemaking. As we heal, can we help make peace? As we heal, can we be an instrument of peace? You all know what the world out there is trying to do to all of us, to divide us, to make some of us feel more important than others, to make us okay with the ways in which we're depriving many other people of just the right to live. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Threatening other people, as the story of Zaid Atkinson and the story of the young man who recently gave his life, actually, unfortunately, in the school shooting reminds us. It's not just threats. People's lives are being taken unfairly and way too soon because of fear, because of our inability to kind of amplify that everybody matters and we're all connected. So healing, peacemaking, and doing some justice. And by doing justice, I don't mean everybody has to be lawyers, for God's sake, no. But justice can come in how we meet each other on the street. Justice can come in the ways that we extend a hand to each other. I call personal justice the way that we commit to honoring what we need and recognizing the grace, the ashe, the power that we have to help make a difference in the world. It's a personal justice mission. So when we are thinking about doing justice in the world, please include ourselves. Start with ourselves. How do I take care of myself? That's about healing, peacemaking within myself, and being just with myself. And from there, can you help heal other people? From there, can you help make peace? From there, can you help do justice? Because if you're not right with yourselves, you're not really going to be the best source of any kind of real justice and peace for anybody else. And so, with those few words, in between you and the cookies, getting out of the way, and just really, again, inviting that final reflection on the power in you. Baba Kandemwa really used this idea, be like the ocean. Really invited this metaphor, be like the ocean as we do our healing, peacemaking, and doing justice. Be like the ocean that refuses no river. Okay, think about that. Each of us perhaps has our own rivers, creeks, or oceans, but joining with other oceans. Refuse no river. Refuse no river of the current that comes up through you. Be like the ocean that refuses no river. Be like the ocean that is never the same twice, that's open to new things. Be like the ocean that is that power, that ashe, that is the only thing in nature that ever changes, but can change everything. I am with you. I am honored to be with you. I am grateful for this opportunity to share in this moment of appreciation of this day in your very life. And may we continue on this journey, knowing full well that we're not alone, that we together can really change everything, and that only through our being true to the healing, the peacemaking, and justice-making that is ours alone to do, can we ever heal and change the world. I thank you so much. I thank you so much for being with me. Thank you.